As the sun set and the sky turned orange over the sprawling city of Lagos, Prisca admired the view from the balcony of her high-rise apartment. The city's lights began to twinkle, casting a warm glow over the bustling streets below. Prisca lived in a luxurious flat in Victoria Island, a prime area in Lagos, which she shared with her close friend Anita. Both women had become close over the years, bound by their shared experiences in the city and their relentless pursuit of success. Their third friend, Nellie, often visited, and together they formed a close-knit trio that supported each other through life challenges. Anita was just as ambitious as Prisca, but while she preferred men of wealth, she wasn't as dismissive of those who didn't fit her standards. Nellie, on the other hand, was more down to earth, valuing kindness and character over wealth and appearance. Prisca was a strikingly beautiful woman. Her flawless skin, perfectly styled hair, and her designer clothes turned heads wherever she went. Men wanted her, but Prisca was very selective. Too selective, in fact. She had a strict criterion for her suitors. They had to be wealthy, handsome, and capable of providing her with the luxurious lifestyle she believed she deserved. In Prisca's mind, dating a man of lesser means was out of the question. She wanted someone who could match or exceed her status, not someone she had to feed. One evening, as they lunched in the living room of their flat, Nellie brought up a man named Femi. "Prisca, there's this guy I think you'd like," she began, a hopeful smile on her face. "He's kind, stable, and he can definitely take care of you." Prisca raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. "Tell me more," she said, sitting up and crossing her legs. Nellie smiled. "He's well-spoken, educated, and he has been asking about you. We've chatted a few times on social media, and he seems really interested." Prisca leaned back, considering. "What's he like? Is he handsome? Rich? Well, he's not bad-looking," Nellie replied carefully. "He's decent, and as for money, he does well for himself, but he's not exactly dripping in wealth." Prisca's interest waned slightly, but she decided to keep an open mind. "All right, let's see where this goes," she said, pulling out her phone to continue the conversation online. For the next few days, Prisca and Femi exchanged messages. Their chats were pleasant enough, and Prisca found herself enjoying their conversation. He seemed genuine, attentive, and had a good sense of humor, but Prisca was hesitant. She wanted to see him in person before making any decisions. Finally, Nellie arranged for the two of them to meet. Prisca was eager to see Femi, hoping he would be as attractive in person as he had seen in their chats. But the moment she laid eyes on him, she was disappointed. Femi was shorter than she had expected, and his looks didn't meet her high standards. His outfit was plain, and she felt he was out of place in the upscale restaurant where they met. Prisca's face hardened as she looked him over. "Is this a joke?" she spat out, her voice dripping with disdain. "You seriously thought you could impress me looking like that?" Femi's face fell. "I just thought we'd had a nice evening together," he said softly, trying to keep his composure. Prisca didn't relent. "You are ugly, short, and you don't even have the decency to dress properly. What were you thinking?" she continued, her words cutting like knife. Without giving him a chance to respond, she stood up and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Femi sitting alone, humiliated. As she left, she blocked his number and deleted their chat history, making it clear that she had no intention of ever speaking to him again. When Prisca returned home, Nellie was waiting for her, eager to hear how her date had gone. "So, how was it?" she asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Prisca rolled her eyes. "He was a disaster, Nellie. I can't believe you thought he was good enough for me. I never want to hear his name again." Nellie sighed. disappointed but not entirely surprised. Prisca, I really think you should give him a chance. He's a good man and he likes you. I don't care. Prisca snapped. I am not interested. End of discussion. Nelly tried to convince her otherwise, but Prisca was adamant. A few days later, Femi proposed to Nelly. He told her that since Prisca had rejected him, he wanted to move on with someone who could appreciate him. Nelly was taken aback by the proposal and asked for some time to think it over. When Nelly told Prisca about Femi's proposal, Prisca laughed out loud. You should go ahead and marry him if you want, she said dismissively. I'm definitely not interested in him. Prisca waved her off. Trust me, Nelly. I'm not interested. You can have him. Nelly, after much contemplation, decided to accept Femi's proposal. They got married a few weeks later, and while Nelly was happy, Prisca's attitude began to change. Soon after the wedding, Prisca started to grow bitter. She couldn't stand the sight of Nelly and Femi together. The realization that she might have missed out on something good began to gnaw at her, though she would never admit it. Her anger festered, and she started to lash out at Nelly, accusing her of stealing Femi from her. One day, Nelly came to visit Prisca, hoping to clear the air and salvage their friendship, but Prisca was not interested in reconciliation. As soon as Nelly walked through the door, Prisca began shouting at her, hurling insults and calling her names. You have always been jealous of me, haven't you? Prisca screamed. You couldn't stand that I was better than you, so you went after my leftovers. Can't you attract your own man? Nelly was taken aback by the venom in Prisca's voice. Prisca, that's not true and you know that. She tried to explain. You said you weren't interested in him. I never meant to hurt you. But Prisca wouldn't listen. Get out, she yelled. I don't want to see you again. At that moment, Anita walked in, hearing the commotion. What's going on here? She asked, looking between the two women. Nelly explained everything to Anita, who frowned at Prisca's behavior. Prisca, you're the one who rejected Femi. You can't blame Nelly for moving on with her life. Prisca crossed her arms, stubbornly refusing to see reasons. I don't care. Didn't she see other men? Why would it be the men that approached me? Can't she attract her own man? She betrayed me and that's it. Anita shook her head, disappointed in her friend. Prisca, you are wrong. And you need to realize that before you lose more than just Femi. But Prisca was too consumed by her bitterness to listen. She pushed both Nelly and Anita away, choosing to isolate herself in her own resentment. A few weeks later, Prisca met another man on social media named Ugonna. He was handsome, charming, and seemed to have everything Prisca was looking for. They exchanged messages and video calls, and Prisca quickly found herself smitten. Unbeknownst to Prisca, Ugonna was a successful businessman who had lost his wife 5 years ago, though he was ready to marry again. He wanted a woman who would love him for who he was, not for his wealth. To test Prisca, Ugonna decided to meet her in person, but instead of dressing in his usual designer suits, he opted for a simple Ankara outfit and a cowboy hat. When Prisca saw Ugonna at their meeting place, she was appalled. She couldn't believe that the man she had been so excited to meet had shown up looking like a poor village farmer. What is this? She exclaimed, looking him up and down with disgust. Is this seriously what you thought was appropriate for a first date? Ugonna tried to calm her down. I'm sorry if it's not what you expected. I just wore what I had. Prisca was livid. What you had? This is the best you could do? You look like Babi Chibu. If this is the best you can do, then I can't imagine what you must look on a normal day. Probably like a madman. She sneered. She couldn't believe how her day had been ruined by this man, who in her eyes was completely beneath her. Her insults kept coming, and Ugonna realized that his test had worked. Prisca was not the woman he wanted to be with. She blocked his number right in front of him and stormed off, furious that he had ruined what she had hoped would be a perfect date. When Prisca got home, She ranted to Anita about how horrible her date had been. He dressed like a complete idiot. She fumed. I can't believe I wasted my time on him. Anita frowned at her. Prisca, you can't judge people by their appearance. What if he was just testing you? Prisca scoffed. Testing me? Please. If he can't dress properly, he's not worth my time. Meanwhile, Ugonna's friend I came to see him and asked him about how the date had gone. Ugonna shook his head with a sad smile. She's not the one, he said, leaning back in his chair. She judged me by my appearance the moment she saw me. I didn't even get a chance to explain myself. Ike nodded, understanding. It's a shame, but at least you know now. It's better to find out early than after you are committed. You're right. I just hope she would be different. As time passed, Anita introduced Prisca to several more men, but Prisca rejected each one, often insulting them for not being rich enough or handsome enough for her taste. She developed a habit of judging a book by its cover, dismissing potential partners without ever truly getting to know them. Despite her confidence, Prisca's life took an unexpected turn. She had recently quit her job because she heard of a new job opening at a prestigious company. The position was highly sought after. The pay was excellent. Prisca quickly applied, confident that her qualifications and experience would secure her the job. After submitting her application, she shared the news with Anita, who was just as excited as she was. They spent the evening celebrating and dreaming about the bright future ahead. Prisca was confident that she would be selected for the position. She was beautiful, experienced, and she knew how to present herself well. On the day of the interview, Prisca arrived at the company dressed in her best outfit, exuding confidence. As she waited with the other candidates, she couldn't help but boast to them about her qualifications. I'm definitely going to get this job. It's practically mine already. She stayed with a smirk. When it was her turn, she walked into the interview room, where the manager greeted her warmly. Prisca's confidence only grew as she answered the manager's question, showcasing her skills and experience. She was so self-assured that she even asked the manager when she would be starting, as if the job was already hers. The manager smiled politely and replied, "The final decision is up to the CEO. He has the final say on who gets the position." Prisca left the interview with her head held high, convinced that she had secured the job. When she was returning home, she met a man driving in a luxurious car. He introduced himself as Kenny, and he seemed to be everything Prisca had ever dreamed of in a man. He was charming, well-dressed, and drove a sleek, expensive car. Kenny struck up a conversation with Prisca, and she was immediately captivated by his smooth talk and apparent wealth. They exchanged numbers and they left. When she got home, she told Anita all about the interview, boasting about how she had impressed the manager. They laughed and chatted, oblivious to the challenges ahead. She gisted Anita about the man she met on her way home. "Anita, I met a man of my dream. I met my dream man on my way home. He was everything a woman could ever dream of, with his luxurious car." Prisca said happily. "Tell me more, girl," Anita asked. "Oh my God, Anita, you need to see him. He's so charming. I've fallen in love already." Prisca chuckled. "I need to see him. Introduce him soon," Anita replied. Ken invited Prisca to his hotel room. When she got there, she asked him why he stays in a hotel despite being rich. Kenny lied to her that his house is on renovation, and he has about 20 houses. Prisca was so happy on hearing that. Meanwhile, the man that owns the car that Kenny was driving had already come to him to collect money for the week's ride. Kenny hires car to pose as a rich man to attract rich ladies and extort money from them. The man told Kenny to pay up, otherwise there will be no hire. Kenny asked for more time. Kenny and Prisca spent the night together. In the morning, a receptionist came to the room and informed him that the hotel room hasn't been paid in days. He gave an excuse that he hasn't activated his Nigerian account yet. as he was having issues with it, but he would pay up soon. Prisca asked him why he hasn't paid yet. He told her that he was having difficulties activating the account. Prisca opted to pay on his behalf, hoping to receive it with interest. Unknown to Prisca, the whole scene was planned. The girl that posed as the receptionist later came to collect her share from Kenny. After their meeting, Kenny continued to woo Prisca, inviting her to fancy dinners and taking her on shopping sprees. Prisca was completely smitten. Finally, she thought she had found a man who matched her high standards. Kenny made her feel special, and in her mind, he was the perfect catch. She began to spend more time with him, and before long, they were inseparable. However, Kenny always had an excuse whenever it came time to pay for anything. He would tell Prisca that his accounts were temporarily frozen or that he was having trouble with his bank. Prisca, eager to maintain the relationship and convinced of his wealth, would always offer to cover the cost, confident that Kenny would repay her once his financial issues were resolved. Anita noticed the growing expenses Prisca was shouldering and warned her to be cautious. "Prisca, I don't want to interfere, but are you sure about Kenny? He seems too good to be true, and you have been paying for a lot of things lately. Are you sure he's not using you?" Prisca brushed off Anita's concerns. "Anita, you worry too much. Kenny is just going through a rough patch. But once things are sorted out, we'll be living the life I've always dreamed of. You don't need to be worried about me." Kenny kept extorting money from Prisca, telling her one lie or the other. Kenny was happy his plans are working out fine. As the days passed, Prisca waited for the call from the company she applied for job earlier, but none came in. She grew increasingly anxious. Finally, she decided to visit the company to inquire about the status of her application. When she arrived, the receptionist informed her that the positions had already been filled and she was not selected. Prisca was shocked. "There must be a mistake," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can I speak to the CEO? I'm sure he will reconsider once he meets me." The receptionist gave her a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the CEO has already made his decision." Devastated, Prisca left the building, her mind reeling. How could she have lost out on the job? She had been so sure of herself, so confident. When she returned home, she told Anita about it. She tried to comfort her, but nothing could ease the sting of rejection. Anita told her about the rent, which was due, and the landlord had threatened to throw them out if they didn't pay by weekend. Anita suggested they bring another roommate who would clear half of the rent while she gets the remaining half. Prisca objected to the idea, saying that she would do something about it. She went to meet Kenny. She told him about her due rent and she needs her money back to pay the rent. Kenny made up an excuse and asked her to give him some time to get her the money. Prisca agreed. Things went from bad to worse when Prisca realized that she was late for her period. Worried, she bought a pregnancy test strip, which confirmed her fears. She was pregnant. She immediately called Kenny to tell him the news, looking sad. Kenny, always the smooth talker, reassured her, saying, "Don't worry, Prisca. I'll take care of everything. Just come to the hotel tomorrow and we will discuss our next steps." But when Prisca arrived at the hotel the next day, she was told that Kenny had checked out. Panic set in as she tried calling him, only to find that his number was no longer in service. She felt her world crumble as the realization hit her. Kenny had scammed her. Heartbroken and desperate, Prisca went to Anita, who had been warning her all along. Anita listened to her friend's story with a heavy heart. "I'm so sorry, Prisca," she said softly. "I tried to warn you, but I know how much you wanted to believe in him." Prisca nodded. Tears streaming down her face. I was so stupid, Anita. I believed everything he said, and now I have nothing. No job, no money, and I'm pregnant with a child I can't take care of. Anita hugged her, wishing she could do more to help. But their situation was dire. The rent was due, and they barely had enough to cover it. In a desperate move, Anita had brought in another roommate, Simi, to help with the rent. But Simi, who had already contributed her share, didn't want to live with someone who couldn't pay. Simi confronted Prisca, telling her bluntly that she needed to leave if she couldn't contribute to the rent. Prisca, already at her lowest, felt utterly defeated. Where am I supposed to go, Simi? I have no money, no job, and I'm pregnant. She pleaded, hoping for some sympathy, but Simi was firm. I'm sorry, Prisca, but I can't carry your burden. This is real world, and we all have to survive. You need to figure something out. You have a week to live. Prisca felt the world closing in around her. She had lost everything, her job, her dignity, and now even her place to live. But she decided to go to the company again, to meet the CEO at least, for the job offer, but was shocked at the sight of what she saw. It was Ugonna. He was the CEO of the company she had so desperately wanted to work for. Her heart sank as she realized that the man she had insulted and dismissed for his shabby appearance was actually the CEO of the company. Memories of her encounter with Ugonna flooded back, and Prisca could only curse herself for how she treated him. She had been so blinded by superficial things that she failed to see the person behind the clothes. Now, Ugonna was not only out of her reach, but it was also a painful reminder of her own mistakes. Desperation clouded her thoughts as she tried to figure out what to do next. She thought of selling her car, the only luxury she had left, to at least have some money to start over. But when she approached a car dealer to sell it, she was offered far less than it was worth. Pressed for time, Prisca reluctantly agreed to the deal. The day she went to finalize the sale, she noticed something odd about the dealer's paperwork. But in her desperation, she pushed her doubt aside and signed the documents. As soon as the sale was complete, the dealer handed her a small amount of cash, far less than what they had agreed upon. When Prisca protested, the dealer coldly informed her that the paperwork she had signed transferred ownership for the amount he had just given her. Realizing that she was scammed yet again, Prisca was left with only a fraction of what her car was worth, and now she had no car and almost no money. Her last connection to her former life of comfort and security was gone. Prisca was subjected to a life of misery, bearing her pregnancy alone. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please give it a thumbs up. If you are coming across my channel for the first time, please hit the subscription button and turn on the notification bell to be notified of our new story. And please don't forget to comment, like, and share. And for our returning viewers, thank you guys, and God bless you for choosing to support our channel. Bye!